We are live streaming.
You're.
It wouldn't let me. Good morning, everybody.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
We're here with Bob. Yay, Bob. Bob at Carnivore Talk.
Oh, we are live.
Yes, we are live. It's the 3rd of September, 2025. And we're here with Dr. Kiltz, Bob, Alia, and me.
Who's me?
We're live in multiple
Dr.
channels, too numerous to count.
I have Instagram, Dr. Kiltz Instagram Live, and I have Kiltz Mighty Tribe Live. And let me see if I can this will work. There we go. Yeah, we're all on the live category. I think I'm live. I'm not always sure where I'm going, what I'm doing, but we're here talking to Carnivore Talk, Bob Angel from Ohio.
Angle, and yes.
Angle. Yep. It's my dyslexia that I still comment a little bit about. Welcome, Bob. How are you today?
So I'm doing okay. It's rather bright and early for me, and I had a hard time sleeping last night. I think because I was afraid of sleeping past all this, because I don't tend to respond to my alarms very well. So I slept very lightly, if at all. But I'm here.
Awesome. I'm not sure. Is Dr. Nelson here, or is this his bot?
It's the Nelson AI.
Yes, which is globally taking over the world. That's for sure. And Dr. Nelson, what do you have to bring to us today?
I got Bob. Actually, at 3 p.m., we have the certification class meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a coach talk to us about motivational interviewing for lasting change in nutrition and fitness.
Nice.
All right. Sounds good. So I'm hoping I can make the call. My son, who would normally help me out today, has to report for jury duty at 12:30 to potentially be selected. So I'm all alone today. So I'm hoping I can get done what I need to get done and be back in time for the class. If not, I'm gonna have to be listening remotely or catch it on the replay. So, but yeah, no, I definitely look forward to that. Anything that's brushes up on the coaching skills, how to interact with other individuals, and communicate with them better and understand them better. That's kind of my motivations for taking the course, is because I'm kind of a nerd. So I study all the sciencey stuff all the time, but to be able to communicate that to someone else and get them to understand and appreciate it, that's where I'd like to develop some skills, because we see a lot of people who are suffering with different diseases and chronic issues. And then I know tons of people who have had those exact same issues who have reversed them thanks to their carnivore diet, just like I have many of mine. But they don't want to listen because we sound, somewhat crazy to them. So I just wanted to take the coaching course so I could pick up some skills that would be better able to communicate and maybe reach someone on their level and help them understand. So that was my purpose in signing up for the course.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. So when we get into these aspects of the course where they're going to actually teach coaching skills, that's actually what I'm looking forward to the most. So the course has been enjoyable so far. I've loved some of the guest instructors that have been on, and we had the courtesy copy of the 30 Days of Carnivore course in there. That was very nice and put together. It's nice to see what that was all about all this time. And but yeah, the coaching skills in these remaining weeks, are, to me, those are going to be the highlights of the program, I'm sure.
Bob, why carnivore? What led you to this spot in your life? And why Carnivore Talk and getting out there and sharing the word?
So I've always oscillated with my weight. So I was a very heavy child in middle school, and then in high school, I lost some weight. Post high school, gained a lot of it back. In my early 20s, lost it again. And the way I would lose it is someone had shared a book with me called Dr. Atkins' New Diet Revolution. And I applied what I had learned. And back then in the 90s, there was no, all these so-called keto products. You literally had to make your food from scratch. And so for the most part, it was whole foods. And it was based around meats and fats and low carbohydrates. And I always found that easy to lose weight and maintain weight, provided, of course, I stuck with it. And that was always my downfall. So I would use it as a means to lose weight and get down to a goal weight. And then over the next course of a few years, I'd slowly find myself huge again. And then I'd repeat the cycle. And so that cycle kept repeating all throughout my adult life. And then as I got into my late 30s, I started developing certain issues. So I came down with ulcerative colitis. It was the big one that kind of started things going. And then just aches, pains, chronic issues. And then I got prescribed a drug for the ulcerative colitis. And about 10 years later, in 2019, I got diagnosed with chronic kidney disease and high triglycerides. And so I talked to a nephrologist. There's a pretty lengthy story there that goes into details. I'd refused the biopsy, and because he wanted to see if it was still an active issue with my kidneys. And what I talked to him doing instead was, let's continue to monitor the blood work over every 3 months. And if nothing changes, then we know that it's not an active situation. And that was the case. And he said that if I had lost weight, it would take a lot of the pressure off my kidneys and I could possibly see some improvement. So I said, okay, I'll in 6 months, I'll be back and I'll weigh as much as my son, which was about 50 pounds less at the time. And his attitude and the attitude of my PCP was pretty like, yeah, right. Everybody says that, but nobody ever does. And so remembering back to what always works for me, that was always a keto or low carb diet, tracing all the way back to that book, Dr. Atkins. So I started going down that path again, trying to get my family on board as well. And so now, though, we live in, a modern era where everything is based on video. And so instead of busting out all these books and rereading these books and looking at the low carb cookbooks and stuff like that, I'd sit in my chair and I'd say, well, let's get on YouTube and look for recipes on YouTube that the whole family might enjoy, because I usually did most of the cooking. And in so doing so, I came across Dr. Ken Berry, and he talked about keto, and he talked about how true keto is just fatty meat and low carb veg, and none of this other, keto bars, keto cakes, keto treats, keto cookies, keto flour, keto tortillas, that all of that was a bunch of junk. And it was misleading people, and it made a lot of sense. I'd actually been kind of questioning that for some time when I would read the ingredients on these things. And I would ask myself, how is this keto, or how is this considered a fiber? I mean, these are a lot of these things here, like Dr. Atkins would have never approved of. So that made a lot of sense. And so I started cleaning up my diet. So it was a clean keto. And I started doing just meat and veg, and I was losing some weight. And when I started this, I was 232, by the way. And then what happened was I'd turn on YouTube, and every time you turn it on, there's these recommendations for what to watch next, that it serves up to you. And so I started getting recommended videos from Dr. Berry since I started watching him. And he would have these videos about carnivore and how you don't need to eat plants at all. And I was like, wait a minute, to me, it sounded silly. Because I was raised to eat your fruits and vegetables. Your fruits and vegetables are so good for you. I was raised very religious. So, I thought by design we were supposed to eat fruits and vegetables. And so I was like, I'm not so sure about this, but Dr. Berry seemed like a very level-headed and reasonable individual. So I would watch these carnivore videos, and it would kind of intrigue me, but I wasn't willing to commit. Well, then in May of 23. So this is when I started carnivore. It's May 12th, 2023. I broke my ankle in my backyard, horsing around with trying to take a tree down. And I go to the hospital, and I'm kind of depressed about the whole situation because I was making progress, losing weight, and I was thinking, how am I going to continue my progress, get that summer beach bod when I can't get out there and exercise. I can't walk for miles. I can't walk the trails. I can't walk the dog. All I'm going to be able to do, I was told, was basically sit in a chair for the next 3 months, and wasn't even sure how I was going to be able to work. And so I was kind of down about it, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just give this carnivore diet a try and go complete zero carb. And so that's when I committed. I was actually still in the hospital the next morning after my surgery. And when they brought the menu out and asked me what I wanted, I had my first carnivore meal right there in the hospital. I had eggs, I had bacon, I had sausage with some cheese. And for the next year, I never touched a plant. And the results were amazing. So like I healed super fast, according to my bone doctor. I was back on my feet in 6 weeks without crutches. And I've got six screws and a metal plate in my ankle. And I continued to lose weight. So during those 6 weeks, I was basically sat in my recliner, binge watching Netflix, binge watching YouTube on carnivore videos, and playing my PlayStation. And I continued to take off another 10, 11 pounds in that 6 weeks. During that time, my blood pressure came down, and a lot of these issues that I had been suffering with at this point, where it was like bleeding gums, narcolepsy, not officially, but I had an issue of like falling asleep at the wheel. And skin tags disappeared. And I mean, and I had all this energy, and then I healed super fast. And so I became a believer. Right away, and committed. And I stayed committed to strictly like zero plants over the course of the next year. I'm an internet junkie. So I lease a server. I build some websites for myself and some friends and some other communities. I've been into forums since Usenet of the late 80s and 90s, and those type of communities. I actually prefer them over social media. And so I looked around for a carnivore forum on the internet, and there wasn't one that I could find. There was 2 sites I found at the time. There was one called carnivoretown.com, and it was someone set it up, but then it was just dead. Like they never, no posts, no marketing, nothing. It was just empty. And then there was another one called Carnivore Forum, I think .org. And that was by this young kid named Joey, who I guess was carnivore for years, and then he went primal, and then he went off the deep end, and he wasn't even supporting his own community anymore, and it had kind of died too. So I started Carnivore Talk, and started advertising it, just for fun. It's a labor of love, and just because that was one of my way of trying to get the word out was, let's put this on somewhere put this information out there where Google will index it and possibly put it in front of more people. So that was the idea behind starting Carnivore Talk. And then the YouTube channel was to complement that. It was to, the channel will hopefully drive more traffic to the site and the Google search results will hopefully drive more traffic to the channel. And I wasn't unfamiliar with YouTube. I have another channel that we've abandoned. It was like a family vlog channel that we did from like 2015 to 2017. So I had all the equipment, so I just got everything out again and decided to start YouTubing again. I had wanted to, and couldn't decide what I wanted. And so this kind of now I knew what I wanted to do. So I started the YouTube channel to complement everything else. So that's the history. That's the Cliff Notes version. So,
And what type of healing have you seen in yourself that has surprised your doctors or your healthcare professionals?
so my nephrologist, probably my biggest win, okay, with carnivore, my biggest healing, my victory is actually, I talk a lot about kidney disease and triglycerides, but it really is an ulcerative colitis. I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 2009, 2010. And, I mean, I just suffered with it for a couple years because I didn't have insurance. And then Obamacare came out and you were kind of forced to buy insurance. And that was actually like a good thing for us at the time. And so I was able to see a specialist, a gastroenterologist, and we scheduled a colonoscopy, and I had ulcers all over my large colon. He said it looked terrible. And there was a number of steps we had to do to try and get that back normal again. You know, one of the options was remove my colon, and I'm like, no, I'll take your drugs. I wasn't into being chopped up. And so we started on this drug called mesalamine. And I remember I asked that gastroenterologist back then, I'm like, does diet have anything to do with it? Is there anything I can change with what I eat? Because, you know, I was into, you know, some processed foods, and I was really into like hot sauce, hot peppers, hot challenges, you know, things like that. And I was eating protein bars, you know, so I knew that they weren't like natural, you know, maybe I should eat more natural. And he just said, no, he said, ulcerative colitis is an autoimmune disease. We don't know what triggers it. All we do know is that there's no cure. All we can do is manage it. So you can continue to eat anything you want, you know, and I know that sentence should have ended with, as long as you keep taking my pills. And so that's kind of what I did for the next 10 years. And my insurance company hated the prescription. It was for a product called Dipentum, which is mesalamine. And so every year I would have to go to the healthcare marketplace, find an insurance company that would cover this medication. Because if I was late on my insurance payments, it went from like $150 a month copay to all of a sudden like $2,200. And there's no way I could afford that. Well, in 2019, this is kind of when I started investigating health. I picked an insurance company that claimed that they would provide that medication with the copay. And then when I went to get my first prescription in January, it was like, oh, that'll be $2,200. And I'm like, well, I'll be back, you know, called the insurance company. And they said, oh, we cover it, but we reclassified it from a class 4 drug to a class 5 drug. So instead of this copay, you actually have to use up all your annual deductible first, and then we'll start paying for it. And that was like $14,000. So I was like, you're probably never buy me a bottle of pills at all, or it'll be like one in December. So I quit taking it. And over the course of the next couple months, my symptoms came back, and I would be stuck in my house till about noon. And then I could go to work. I couldn't eat anything during the day, or I'd be stuck in my client's bathroom. I'm in construction. And I started doing some research as to what triggers some of this. So I was reading these forums, again, my favorite place to go, and on IBD. And a lot of people said that coffee was a trigger. And so I was a pot a day drinker. I would wake up in the morning about 7:30, brew a pot, drink two 16-ounce cups, just like this, at home while I looked at emails and did estimates and stuff, and kept running to the bathroom. And then around noon, I would take the rest of it, put it in a 32-ounce tumbler, and take it with me. And I would nurse that thing all day long. And so I decided, well, I'm going to try this without coffee. I had an event coming up that I was trying to volunteer on, and I didn't know how I was going to do it with all the trips I had to take to the bathroom. So the day of that event, I woke up and I didn't have any coffee. I went all day without having to go to the bathroom. I had a massive headache, but I didn't have to go to the bathroom. So I was like, whoa, there's something to this. And I've never drinking a drop since. That was in 2019. And I never got back on medication since either. And my stools were better and less frequent. And then, but I'd go in for colonoscopies every 2 years because that's what they want me to do now, since I'm considered high risk for colon cancer because of the ulcerative colitis diagnosis. And every time I went for a colonoscopy, they do a biopsy, and the biopsies test positive for ulcerative colitis. Well, then in 2023, I discovered carnivore, and in last September in 2024, I had my last colonoscopy, and the biopsy actually came back tested negative for ulcerative colitis. So I've officially been cured of an incurable autoimmune disease. That is my biggest victory. So when it comes to things that surprise people, my gastroenterologist says that it makes no sense. It goes against everything that's published about the disease, and neither I nor him would say that like everybody should quit coffee. I maybe in particular had a sensitivity towards it. So it's not necessarily universal. I know a lot of carnivores love their coffee. So this is a story they don't want to hear me tell. But I had to quit coffee and I improved like 90%, and then carnivore took it the rest of the way. So now I'm 110% improved. So that's my biggest victory. So.
Are we simply poisoned by plants and a low animal fat diet and eating like a domesticated animal 3 to 6 times a day? Have you incorporated any fasting into your life? And what are your thoughts about fasting?
I like to eat, so fasting doesn't excite me too much. I would have never tried it if I hadn't met you eventually during that early days of my carnivore journey. Because I know you talk about fasting a lot, and so I have tried. I practice intermittent fasting. I'll eat twice a day, once a day, depending on how I feel. But I tried a couple fasts. So for a while, I was doing no food Saturdays, and I would go for Friday's dinner would be my last meal until Sunday's brunch, and I think the longest stretch that was technically 40 hours. And I did okay. Once you get hungry initially, like around the time you would normally eat, and then you just ignore that for 30 minutes or so, and the hunger goes away, and then then it never comes back, and probably wouldn't come back, but I ended up eating anyway, So that's the extent of the fasting I've done. I would finish my last meal on Fridays, resume on Sundays, and just not eat on Saturdays. I did that for a few weeks, and it helped me through some stalls at the time. But then, because of my triglyceride issue, I intentionally stopped losing weight until I got my answers to that and got that under control. So,
how do triglycerides hurt us? I've always wondered.
Well, they might not directly, but they can be representative of other problems or other issues. So, they say that if you have a triglyceride level greater than 1,000, which is extreme, by the way, most people on keto carnivore, they see theirs go down from, they had them around 175, they go carnivore keto, and then they see them drop down to 50. Mine were 700 since at least 2019. And then when I lost a bunch of weight rapidly, they went up to 3,000. Well, triglyceride to HDL ratio is what all the carnivore doctors say is a better indicator of cardiac risk versus, say, high LDL. So that kind of scared me. And then triglycerides over 1,000 could put you at risk of pancreatitis. And that scared me too at the time. I since then have found out why my triglycerides reacted the way that they did. And I'm thinking that I was actually not at risk for any of those things at all, because my triglyceride spike actually is directly related to my chronic kidney disease. So, and I took a drug to bring the trigs down, which actually did more damage to my kidneys, unfortunately. And when I really just should have stopped my weight loss and given it time, and they would have come down on their own. So,
How we doing on cues, Miss Leah?
We have a bunch. Let's start. Sandra Hardeen. Bob, I watched some of your very first videos on your kidney disease. How is it now after doing carnivore?
So I have to answer this in kind of two stages. There's a before fenofibrate and after fenofibrate. So before fenofibrate, it was doing good. You know, I know a lot of people who reverse their chronic kidney disease completely or by several stages. And I'm late stage, so I'm stage 4. And when I started on carnivore, my nephrologist was on board with it because he said that he wanted me eating more protein because I was spilling so much in my urine. And so I started this carnivore diet and I was losing weight. My numbers were not improving like miraculously, but you saw some improvements, except in creatinine. My creatinine kept going up. So my eGFR, which is just an estimate, kept dropping. So to my PCP, that looked like I was killing my kidneys. And he flipped out. He was like, you got to get off this diet. You got to start eating oats for a living. I knew that was, I had already done enough research to know that wasn't the case. And my nephrologist also was like, yeah, we're not really worried about that. You know, he's more worried about how I feel. And I got my nephrologist to order a cystatin C. It's another means of calculating eGFR. And that was looking good. And there's other things that you monitor. So like, you know, your hematocrit and hemoglobin demonstrates, you know, how well you're producing red blood cells, you know, so those were still fine. You can also, you do the urine tests, you know, is the protein and the creatinine levels changing in the urine, or is it remaining constant? My kidneys started, you know, making better use of vitamin D than they had before. So my vitamin D had increased. My parathyroid markers had improved. So he saw markers that showed little improvements here and there. Nothing that was like, you know, miraculous. Miraculous would be reversing a stage, which even my nephrologist thinks is impossible. He says kidneys never get better, you know, and I was kind of on a mission to prove him wrong. I haven't been able to do that yet. We saw little minor improvements. I remained stable. And so, and we're happy with that. As long as I feel great and remain stable, there's no need for dialysis or transplants or anything like that. I'm still producing urine. Now, after the triglyceride scare, I went on fenofibrate for a year, and then my kidney function tanked. My phosphorus shot up, my potassium shot up, my hematocrit and hemoglobin dropped. My eGFR was down to like 8 with creatinine with cystatin C. It went from 23 to 17. And we were all trying to figure out like what changed. And at first we didn't think of it right away, but then it dawned on me, wait a minute, I've been on a new prescription for the last 12 months. So I did some research on it, and it said, I found plenty of articles on PubMed that said like people who take this is known to increase serum creatinine, harm kidneys, and you should not give this medication to anyone with late stage renal disease.
Wow.
That was me. So I wasn't happy about that. And you've probably seen that video too, where I explain it. So since I've gotten off of it, I've rebounded. So my eGFR with creatinine, my creatinine's gone down. That eGFR calculation has gone up, but I don't put too much stock in that one. My hematocrit and hemoglobin have rebounded some, not as to where I would like to see them. My phosphorus has come down, not down as far as I would like to see it. So I haven't completely regained my lost ground yet, except for my cystatin C. My cystatin C, which went from 23 to 17, is now up to 24. So that's one marker that I really like seeing. You know, if that keeps going up, I could really care less about the creatinine one, you know. So I am convinced that my carnivore diet is not harming my kidneys, even with late stage, really bad kidneys, you know, late stage renal disease. And the modern medicine says you should stay away from protein, eat low protein, and eat zero animal protein. And I just think that's a bunch of bullpucky. And I'm willing to test it out on myself to prove it. So that's kind of one of the missions behind my YouTube channel is like, you know, I got chronic kidney disease. I'm doing a carnivore diet. Here's what's happening. Because a lot of people with kidney disease, they're afraid to go carnivore because the common thinking is that protein, especially animal protein, is going to finish you off. It's going to take care of the rest of your kidneys for you. When I think the kidneys, I think for most people, you have your diabetes, your hypertension, and I think most people with kidney problems, they probably were taking drugs that were nephrotoxic. I think that's probably one of the bigger issues, and I think that was mine. It was the mesalamine. That brings me full circle to the ulcerative colitis. I've since done research on mesalamine on PubMed also, and I've found also studies that say that mesalamine is known to cause irreversible kidney damage, and that people on mesalamine should only be on it for a short time, and they should be monitored. Their bloods should be monitored. No one ever monitored my bloods for 10 years that I was taking that drug every day. Yeah.
It does make sense because it is a salicylate,
Mm-hmm.
and aspirin is closely related. It's acetyl salicylate. The mesalamine is methyl salicylate, I believe, and they can damage the kidneys. But just as a teaching point, not to you because you know everything I'm going to say, but to the audience. So the kidneys are involved in the management of your blood pressure. Your kidneys are involved in the management of the vitamin D and the loops that influence the parathyroid, phosphorus, calcium, and your kidneys are involved in making blood. Who would have thought, huh? Yes, kidneys are involved in making blood. People with chronic kidney disease very often will, when you're in severe kidney disease, you are given erythropoietin, and I don't know if you were ever given that because
I
your
haven't.
blood count have been good, but anyways.
Yeah. So if I ever head down, if things were to decline, yeah, those are risk factors. So because the fact that my hematocrit and hemoglobin are down below average, that's indicative that my kidneys aren't producing the erythropoietin, which doesn't trigger my bone marrow to produce red blood cells. So if I was to ever have to have a transplant, I'd have to have erythropoietin injections to try and get my red blood cell count up, because then that puts me at high risk for, possibly having complications that would require a blood transfusion, So, but, we'll cross that path when we get there if we have to.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Dr. Kiltz.
Where are salicylates? Where do they come from?
Plants. Plants.
And so is it what you're saying, Bob, is that the plant-based diet that we've all been eating might be actually a contributing factor to disease in all of us, because the diet that we're taught to eat is a plant protein, low-fat diet and 3 to 6 meals a day. Could it be as simple as like that?
Yes. If you were to simplify it, that is the message. So, I definitely believe in the benefits of eating meat, so I encourage everyone to eat a carnivore, what I call a carnivore centric diet or a meat-based diet. If someone still wants to eat plants here and there, that's their prerogative. I think certain are going to be more benign than others, so I think the biggest culprits are your mass-produced glyphosate sprayed grains and sugars and that make up your processed food. So, if someone wants to, for instance, to be keto or ketovore, and if they don't have any health issues, that's fine. If they do that and they live fine and they're happy and they don't get sick, I think they're making wise decisions. If they're still having issues if they're having chronic issues, pains, things like that, then they might want to try and slip those vegetables to the side for a while and see if they don't notice any improvements, and treat carnivore like an elimination diet too. So I'm not anti-plant. I'm definitely pro-meat, but I am kind of like anti-grain and anti-sugar. So I've kind of I always say that I've made vows, and I've actually worded it that way to myself, that I will never eat grains or refined sugar again, unless it's my wedding anniversary. That's the way I work it.
Here's my theory. This is the ultimate carnivore bar, by the way. It's raw fatty meat.
Mm-hmm.
In actuality, my bet is that refined sugar and grains is less toxic than the raw plant itself. And the simplicity is because we figured out how to process these things in order to minimize the toxicity and maximize the caloric value. Because that's really ultimately what we cared about in our evolution. Now, I'm giving you my opinion because when you simplify the sugar, you remove most of the antigenic chemicals and substances that actually because it's the fibrous stuff that stuffs the gut, that allows the microbes to flourish so much. So I'm giving you I think we might still have it opposite, but I'm a little against the grain guy. And I will tell you that but as you said, the carnivore bar, this is it, right? You said processed. I mean, nature's processed food. Is this all we need?
It's been proven that you can survive just on that.
And do we require plants in our diet ever?
There's zero requirement for plants in your diet. Absolutely none. And so I want to say I agree with what you're saying there. Another shocking thing to learn was that a lot of these plants, you're actually better off cooking them or processing them. You know, that I'm not into the raw state. You know, a lot of raw vegetables usually taste terrible. You need to have them cooked so they're soft with some butter on them, the salt, and it's because you like the butter and the salt. But you learn that, like kidney beans, those have to be cooked and canned and reheated later. You can't actually just pick raw kidney beans off the vine and eat them. You'll get sick, because of the toxins that are in them. And that's true for a lot of foods. You had to cook them to death in order to make them edible. Mm-hmm. And so that's another thing that kind of gives me pause for thought is, I always say that personally, I don't want to eat it unless God or nature provided for it. So I have to be able to pluck it off a vine, or I have to be able to hunt it down, slit its throat, kill it, milk it, something like that. What would you as a human have done thousands of years ago, without modern technology, and you could hunt, and you could maybe occasionally find some fruitage seasonally. Those were your only options. And so you can't go out and, pick these beans and just eat them. You'll get incredibly sick. So you have to cook them to death. And so that's another thing that gives me pause, about, when you cook them, just how safe are they becoming? And like I said, if you eat some, if you're the type of person that eats some, that's what you want to do. Sure, you do you. But I think that they should be, few and far between. Definitely your diet, and you can tell. There's many scientific ways to tell that you are designed to be a meat-eating machine. If you look at the digestive system and the human body and everything like that. So, yeah, there's no need for plants. You don't need them at all. And it's been proven that you can go all your life and never touch a single plant and you'll be fine.
Starve Cancer Heal on Instagram. What would you focus on most to keep the body in a cancer-fighting state? Fasting cycles, fat, or protein?
I mean, I think you do all of them.
Yeah, I agree. Fat, but ultimately, fat is what your body wants. Adipose tissue, adipose cells, adipocytes. Protein comes in all cells of every body, of every organism, and so do fats and sugars. And so ultimately, your body wants fat. That's why we make it so quick and readily. Because if you can't make fat, you're dead.
Yeah, no, that's true. So I don't have cancer, so I don't investigate that as much. But from what I've gathered, cancer thrives on glucose and sugars, and so that's the stuff that I would abstain from if I was battling a cancer diagnosis. I would definitely continue to stick with a regimen of carnivore diet plus fasting. So
yeah, love it. Next
Next question. First, thank you, Ricky Lee, for your super sticker. That was very nice. And then he asks, am I hearing it right? Should I quit coffee?
You might want to just give it a try and see how you feel. There's no way I'll never drink another drop. And it could be, like I was a pot a day drinker. Maybe that was excessive. Could I have an iced coffee now and not see the return of my ulcerative colitis? Probably, if I had one a month, one here and there. It's just not something I'm willing to risk, though. So now that I know that coffee was behind that, and it might have been a combination of things. So I was a plant-based keto dieter. So I would have spinach salads. I bought the big Sam's Club size vat of almonds that rode in between the seats of my truck. I'd nurse those all day. So you had oxalates and spinach. You had oxalates and almonds. You had the molds and other toxins in the coffee. I mean, I was just like, I was consuming plant toxins in probably every form as the bulk of my diet. And the most of the meat I ever had was the occasional egg or occasional chicken breast. Mm-hmm. So, and I was a junk food junkie, Taco Bell, pizza, and going out for Mexican with the rice and the beans and the hot sauce. And I was eating all kinds of processed food in addition to those things. So now I just eat what I consider to be, natural. And for me, I'm 97% carnivore. So there's maybe twice a month where I'm not carnivore. So, and when I mean not carnivore, I mean like a bite of this or a taste of that. I don't even mean like, I don't even have like there's a big bowl of salad or nothing like that,
There you go. Michael Smith, you might have answered this already, but he's asking, hi, Bob, how long did it take before you substantially started to have kidney improvement? I have chronic kidney disease.
So I'm not sure about that word substantially, because, I said that there was some small improvements in this marker or that marker, but there was no miracles yet, so I continued to be stage 4. But all my improvements that since I started carnivore, the improvements came fast. The drop in blood pressure, the change in some of these markers all happened in the next 3 to 6 months.
Plus you did, but you did deep into stage 5 with the phenofibrate.
So stage 5 was because of the phenofibrate. Yeah. So I mean, to put this in perspective, in November of 23, that's my EGFR was going up because my creatinine was my EGFR was going down because of my creatinine was going up. But that's when I learned that I can't rely on that metric because I'm eating more protein. And so when you eat more protein, you produce more creatinine, and that skews that number. It's a calculation. That's why I started doing this as statin C. So because my EGFR was 21, and then it went down to 20, 18, 17, and then, but I checked it with the statin C, and it said 23 when we checked it that way. So, plus my other markers were improved. My parathyroid, my hematocrit, hemoglobin, phosphorus, things like that. Plus my urine tests, we saw things improving, and I'm talking trace improvements. After the year of the phenofibrate, I got comfortable with my kidney function because things were improving, that I stopped testing it. And then after about a year, I got a complete metabolic panel, and my EGFR, my creatinine was through the roof. My EGFR was down to an 8, and my phosphorus was up to a 9.5. My legs were itching. I scratched the hair off the bottom of my legs, and I had been having issues with cramps and stuff that I just thought was, due to electrolyte regulation because I had damaged kidneys. It was electrolyte regulation, but it was because of the phenofibrate damaging the kidneys. Since I got off the phenofibrate, the phosphorus has gone from 9.5 down to 6. The hematocrit and hemoglobin have bumped up a couple points. The creatinine's come down, so the EGFR has gone from 8 to 13. And there's a statin C, which took a hit and went from 23 down to 17, is bumped back up to 24. So after quitting phenofibrate, I'm seeing fast recovery over like the next 3 months, but I'm still not back to where I was before I started taking phenofibrate. Now, everything before phenofibrate, yeah, I was showing little trace improvements every 3 months. We see a little improvement here, a little improvement here, but nothing to write a book about, so.
Michael, if you haven't, subscribe to his channel. He's got a lot, all this information and more about his personal struggles with the chronic kidney disease, and it might help you.
So I just want to, high protein diets are deadly for humans. This is really important. Lean meat is not what we're supposed to eat. We're supposed to eat fatty meat, and every cell of every animal, every plant contains proteins, amino acids, and fatty acids. And so a high protein diet is not good for us. I just want to leave that. Look at protein poisoning. It is real. That's
right.
my
Yes. Yeah.
post, by the way, because nobody's protein deficient. We are not protein deficient. We are inflamed, and we are the one thing is we eat a low fat diet. Most carnivores eat a low fat diet, and that is deadly for them.
Probably because they carry that over from the way they've always been taught and the way they've always thought.
Right.
And yeah, the high protein, in the absence of fat, for sure, like you read horror stories, people who didn't do well on carnivores because they tried to eat a high lean protein diet and they missed the mark there, because you're supposed to get your energy from fat now. And we've heard about issues of, they call it rabbit starvation. It's a weird name for it, but that's when you eat nothing but protein, and you could wither away and die from it, because you're not getting fat, you're not getting carbs or nothing, you're just overloading on protein. And so, yeah, that's definitely not good for you. I think protein is important, but it's not the emphasis.
I think it's not important. I think this is the problem. Science is duped us, because you don't eat protein. You eat either animal products or plants. You eat the cells of an organism and the cells of either the muscle or the organs. And so essentially, when we eat a cell, the cell comes with amino acids, fatty acids, and simple sugars. But ultimately, we're not eating, we eat a low fat diet. And that is our problem. But I think, again, I'm just giving you my craziness. I think you do not eat protein. You eat lean meat or fatty meat, or you eat plants, which ultimately are low in animal fat, which is really the only thing we should be eating is fatty meat. Because rabbit starvation is the Romans were dying because they were eating rabbits in their war, and they didn't eat enough fat, and so they had weakness, diarrhea, fatigue, and many of them died. And because again, rabbits just are not the best food for us. And chickens.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's nice to know where that term came from then. I never looked that up. So that's interesting why it's called rabbit starvation. So yeah, no, I mean, if you want to take the, all the scientific terms out of it and just explain it in the most simplest terms possible, yes, eat fatty meat. That's the answer.
That was my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't think of it as eating protein, because then you might end up with a big tub of protein from GNC, and you're missing the boat there too. You want to get your protein from, fatty red meat, or fatty fish. So
let's take the next one. This is from Papa Carnivore. Bob, can you please discuss the difference between EGFR and cysteine? Am I saying it right?
Yeah,
It's
cystatin.
misspelled, but it's cystatin C.
Oh, cystatin C kidney function test, and why these differ because of elevated creatinine levels in the EGFR test for carnivores.
Sure. Yeah. So an EGFR is an estimated glomerular filtration rate. I may have mispronounced that. And that's just a metric of how well your kidneys are filtering your blood. And creatinine is a good metric to tell for most people. So you check their creatinine, and then that number gets plugged into a formula that takes into account your ethnicity and your age, and it spits out this estimated glomerular filtration rate to give you to try and give doctors an idea of just how well your kidneys are functioning. So the problem, though, is when you're on a carnivore diet, or if you are a bodybuilder and you work out and you're taking a bunch of creatine supplements or protein supplements from GNC and pumping a lot of iron and stuff, creatinine is protein waste byproduct from breaking it down. So the more protein you consume, the more creatinine you're going to produce as a waste product that your kidneys have to filter out. So if you see that creatinine go up, your EGFR goes down, because normally, for a person who doesn't work out or eat a carnivore diet, that's going to indicate that there's something going on with the kidneys. But if you're a bodybuilder, or if you work out, lift heavy weights, or if you eat a carnivore diet, it could be a false flag. So your creatinine will go up because of those lifestyle choices, and that'll bring your EGFR down, and your doctor might flip out and be like, hey, you've got stage 2 or stage 3 kidney disease, when in reality, your kidneys could be perfectly fine. Those numbers are just skewed by the protein consumption. So when you already have damaged kidneys, like I do, well, those numbers go through the roof, and it makes your kidneys look like they've nearly died completely. That's what's happened with me. So now you have cystatin C. That's another protein that the kidneys are in charge of filtering out, but that's not influenced or skewed by the protein you consume or by muscle breakdown from working out. So you can test your cystatin C levels and use that to plug into a formula to calculate an EGFR. And so if you're eating a carnivore diet, if you're a bodybuilder, you get the cystatin C to calculate your EGFR. It's probably going to be more accurate. There are things that will affect a cystatin C, but not protein and not working out. So if you do those things and your EGFR comes back low, and now we're concerned about kidney disease, you would want to double check that with the cystatin C to see what that comes back as. And if the cystatin C comes back and your EGFR is like 110, but with your EGFR with the creatinine was like 50, then something's going on here. Your kidneys might be just fine, but something's driving that creatinine number up, and it's usually those two things: high protein consumption, or you're a bodybuilder and you work out a lot, and therefore you're producing a lot of muscle waste. So that's the difference between the two.
Great. Chuck has a question. Have you changed foods from the first day in the hospital, dairy, coffee, or are you only steak, meat, bacon, eggs? Amazing story.
So no, generally speaking, I just eat meat. I'm a creature of habit. So steak, ground beef. I will cook the ground beef in various ways from night to night to break up the monotony. I cook my eggs a little different every day to break up the monotony. I'm a sausage person, so I like to have sausage patties. I do bacon once in a while. It's messy to cook, so I don't do bacon a lot. I usually just do bacon on the weekends. I still do cheese. I tried raw dairy for a while. I've never been a big milk drinker, but I found a connection because it's illegal here in Ohio. Got me some raw milk, and it tastes like milk. But I don't drink enough of it for me to buy into this program or something. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I like seafood, so if we go out, a lot of times it's to something that I don't make at home. There's a place around the corner that has a good seafood boil. So I like shrimp and I like scallops. Scallops are actually high carb, by the way, in case you want to go down that route, surprisingly. And then, lobster, fish, fatty fish. We buy steelhead trout. I like it better than salmon at the Sam's Club here. So I eat a variety of meats. Almost everything I eat comes from an animal. Now, I still use spices. And then I still drink tea, iced tea, and I still have an occasional artificially sweetened soda. And then I will occasionally have I was super strict my first year, but now I will occasionally have, if I'm going to cheat, I'm going to cheat with keto, or I'm going to cheat with like animal based, so I might occasionally have the side of broccoli if we go to a steakhouse. I might occasionally have, and I have apple trees in my yard. So in the first week of August, there's these little tiny apples, and I might have a few before the deer come and get them. I got cherries also, and they're usually available in early July. So I'll occasionally have something else, but I don't want to go down that road too much. Those things don't seem to trigger me. No like cravings or make me want to go on a bender or crave sugar or nothing like that. So I think it's because I've been doing this for so long that I'm just, my default mode now is just carnivore. So
great.
Next question.
Amanda, my numbers are really high with high fat carnivores. Normal, or should I pull back? Cholesterol 324, cholesterol, HDL 523. I think that's a typo, and LDL 250.
I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it. And I would also say, like, if you are actively losing weight right now, then those numbers are going to be skewed. Don't trust the lipid panel until about 6 months after you've reached weight stability. Because as you're actively losing weight, those lipids are all over the place. You're dissolving it from around your gut, your butt, your adipose tissue. It's dissolving, it's entering your bloodstream, it's skewing your numbers. So I wouldn't worry about a lipid panel. I wouldn't put too much stock in a lipid panel anyway. But when you're actively losing weight, it's easy to get a lipid panel and freak out. As I was actively losing weight, that's when my triglycerides shot up to 3,000. My LDL was up to like 500, and I freaked out. And now, and in hindsight, I wish I didn't, so when you're actively losing weight, don't sweat it. And that LDL number doesn't really mean anything anyway. So
there you go. Pat is asking, wondering what a normal heart rate while resting. I'm between 46 to 48.
Normal.
I don't know, but I think mine's higher.
Fluctuates. It's normal.
There you go. Lisa, I'm Lisa Macaluso. I'm a dialysis nurse for 21 years. Since discovering carnivore, I'm having a hard time not being able to tell patients that animal proteins could help their kidney disease. However, it is written in policy to educate our patients to stay away from meat.
What's really interesting about that is, from what I understand, the mainstream medical advice is if you have chronic kidney disease to eat low protein and then stay away from animal protein. But then I've heard is when you reach stage 5 and you start dialysis, now they want you suddenly consuming more protein. And maybe it's because you're losing some through the dialysis process. I don't know because I'm not on dialysis, but that's what I've heard. Stages, 2 through 4, eat low protein. And then when you go on dialysis, then they want you to increase your protein. I don't know why that makes any sense at all, so other than the fact that now the dialysis machine is taking the place of your kidneys, so then the protein doesn't matter. But yeah, I think protein is important. I think part of the reason why kidney disease progresses, and again, this is my theories because I'm testing this on myself. I think one of the reasons why kidney disease will progress is because you are eating too low of a people, you become kidney disease patients become afraid of protein. And I think that's wrong also.
Just a comment on that. People on dialysis very often are concerned about taking ibuprofen. Well, how much more damage can you do to the kidney when your kidney's already bad enough that you have to have a substitute kidney machine take care of it? So at that point, there is no point in prohibiting someone from using what you think it's toxic to the kidney. There have been several studies. The conventional wisdom has been protein is bad for the kidneys, right? But there are already studies that show that there is no change in renal function by increasing, by eating carnivore or heavy meat.
We'll go
ahead.
back to your question, Alia.
Yeah.
It's very simple. The Western all the medical systems of the world are plant-based and low fat.
Right.
And so as a nurse, all of us, nurses, doctors, practitioners, our job is to break the bad. And the bad is basically, that's part of the pyramid. The pyramid is, why is that person on dialysis? Because they've been given bad advice. And how many people get off dialysis?
Almost none.
Many
Unless
don't.
they get a new kidney.
And
Yeah.
so that RN's job, I believe all of our jobs is to tell the truth. And the truth is that the diets we recommend are deadly for humans. And she has every right to tell that dialysis patient that again, it's fatty meat you want to eat and stay away from plants, period. And lean meat is bad for us. Done.
That's weird. This really glitched out on me for a minute there.
Oh, well, you're still with us.
Okay. All right. So going back to her question, her challenge is that she's a nurse.
Yeah.
And she has this contractual obligation to discourage meat. I would say reword it.
We have an oath. That's what I'm trying to. We don't have a contractual mess. We have a oath in medicine to do no harm.
Right.
And
Yeah.
teaching our brothers and sisters. So her job, I believe, all of our jobs is say enough is enough, because to be fired for that's where they're going to have problems.
Right.
So I think we need to start pushing this, in my opinion. But go ahead.
And I
Bob.
think that's okay. I just think one of the compromises would be, it just have to reword it differently. Like, eat what's natural, whether it's plant or animal, stay away from the processed food. I think that's step one. I think if most people just do that, they're going to benefit tremendously. And then they benefit more the closer they get towards meat. But, if you can't say, hey, go on a carnivore diet, because, that's going to be frowned upon. Just tell people to eat natural, unprocessed, eat natural.
Hospitals serve deadly, awful food, and ask every person in the hospital, and the doctors will say, oh, the food is awful. Our job is to stop being silent, because our brothers and sisters are dying of the diseases because we're unwilling to speak up. And I think this mission is that we must speak up. And until we begin to push the truth, we're just silence. And it's nobody else's fault but our own.
Right.
And my good friend, his mom just diagnosed with metastatic lung cancer at 64. All right. And in her hospital room was a box of Dunkin' Donuts. Right. And we're going to just say it's okay. That's where I think we all need to stop saying it's okay. Next question. Sorry about that.
I just want to read this comment real quick. So North Carnivore, we can go for a long time without food too. I'm 9 days fasted and going for 14. Good job.
And emptying the gut, fasting allows the gut to heal, the glycocalyx to heal, to strengthen it, and allows to stop creating fermentation products. The bugs are fermenting. And if you eat, even carnivores, 3 to 6 meals a day on mostly lean meat, which is all fermentable. That's why it's real important to eat less frequently and do more fasting. And I think it's focused on fatty meat, rare to raw.
There you go. Terry P. Dr. Kiltz, I hear you loud and clear about eating fatty meats, but if I have lots of body fat already on my thighs and belly, how is eating more fat going to get rid of my existing fat?
Well, there's nothing wrong with your existing fat. Fat on your body causes no disease. Now, if you want to be leaner, well, move more, weights more, and yes, leaner meats in the short term, but it's not good in the long term.
And fasting.
And no other animal wants to be skinny. Only humans. And in our fight to be skinny, what's happened to us? We're all getting fatter, even in the carnivore world. And so I would say it just is, yes, in the short term, leaner meats, but ultimately lean meat in the long term is not our friend. Protein
right.
poisoning.
That's right. And then this is the last question because we're already at over an hour. And by the way, everybody needs to go to Mitch's channel right after this and watch this live stream.
Well, Mitch has already happened. Bob, when are your live streams on in your Carnivore Talk?
So every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, I have basically like it's a carnivore roundtable / open mic kind of discussion where I invite multiple people on the screen, just by clicking the link. So sometimes we have, 2 or 3 of us. Sometimes we're maxed out at the 10 that StreamYard allows us to have.
Fun.
And it's not super formal, like an interview, it's just those of us that are doing carnivore, we talk about how things are going for us, and we will answer questions if they happen to pop up in the chat. But it's real laid back, real casual. It's more like a meeting of like minds, meeting of friends. And so if you're a carnivore and you'd like to share your experience, if you don't have much camera experience or you're a little shy about it, it's a good way to kind of get started. You got a camera, you can just click the link, you can join us on screen, and you can just say hi for 30 seconds and then sign back off if you want. So that's what we do on Monday nights. We usually have a theme, and we don't even stick to it most of the time. So because the conversation just goes the way a conversation will go naturally, just like if we were all in a room having dinner, you never know which way the conversation will go, but it's usually all carnivore based. So every Monday at 8 p.m.
Ollie, do you want to do the prize? Hit it.
I do want to do the prize.
Yeah.
We got to do the prize. Oh my gosh.
Do it while
Okay,
we're talking.
sure.
That'd be good.
What are we giving away?
I Kiltz Keto is Carnivore book today. Let me get this on the screen.
And we want to get more stories in the books. And this is really important to tell your story. That's why going to Carnivore Talk with Bob and sharing the stories.
Oh, I won. So can you pick somebody from the tribe?
All right. So let me grab someone from the tribe. Let's see. How about Janet Bunch, B-U-N-C-H. Janet.
Janet, congratulations.
Kiltz.com. And we're getting more and more. And my interest is to get these out on the internet for free, digitally for everyone. So that's coming in our new version, coming out very soon. And again, the more we share this philosophy, the healthier our brothers and sisters are going to get, so we can reduce the incidence of cancers and kidney disease and all those things. Dr. Nelson, any last moment words before we sign off for the day?
No. Whoever's in the class, we'll see you at 3 p.m. tomorrow morning back here at 6 a.m. And you can go over to Mitch's channel.
All right.
Yeah, go see Mitch now. Everybody.
Wow, thank you as always.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks
Appreciate
for being
it.
here. All right, everybody. See y'all later.